Okay, welcome to Chapter 2. Let's dive right in with a project. So just like we did last time, I'm going to do File, New Project, and of the project types, I'm going to pick the one with Ant, and pick Java Application. I'm going to call my guy Chapter 2. And then I'm going to hit Finish, and we should be up and running. So Chapter 2 is about the Java fundamentals on page 27. So we're going to look at what all this stuff is. Now there's an awful lot of stuff that we're just going to talk about here, and I promise we'll get back to it later. But let's just start. So these things are comments. You can kind of sort of tell that they're shaded in a gray color. So there's two different types of comments. There's one like this, which is called a line comment. And then there's one like this called a block comment. And we'll go through this again. By the way, when we finally get to that point, yes, I'm going to tell you that you're going to have a set of standard comments at the top of each one of your applications that you submit. So when we get to that point, be sure to pay attention. And then there's a thing called a class header, which is this thing. So the class header, basically what that is, in the simplest explanation for now, is that's the name of your application. So public means talks about its visibility. Other applications can see this. Class is what this guy is. He's a class. And then Chapter 2 is the name of that class. Kind of straight. So this is a class. It's publicly visible, and it's called Chapter 2. Good. And then there's a method header. Now see, the method is inside the class. That kind of makes sense. You could not have a method that was outside the class. That wouldn't work. But we have one called public static void. Let's go through what most of that means. Again, I'm giving you top level view. I promise we'll come back and talk about these things in a little bit more detail. So that means public means that it's publicly visible, that other applications, other modules, other classes can see this. The static means that I don't need to do anything special to this thing to cause it to create itself. I know that sounds a little weird, so just kind of table that thought. What this basically means is later on we're going to be talking about creating an instance of a class. That's a phrase that we use an awful lot. Create an instance of a class. Well, if it's static, you can skip that step and that's what we're talking about. So just nod your head going, okay, whatever you say, dude, and move on. Void is what's called a return type. So every method, in this case, the method is called main. Every method has to tell us what it's returning back. Well, void means I'm not returning anything back. So even though this one doesn't return anything, you still have to tell it what it's returning. And so what it's returning is nothing. So void means I'm not returning anything. And then the name of the method, which in this case is main. And then there's opening parentheses. And then there's some stuff in the middle called arguments. If you were a classical computer science person, you could have a debate on whether this is called an argument or it's called a parameter. But quite frankly, no one really cares. So I probably use the terms, interchangeably when I'm talking. So there's a string thing with square brackets, and then a word called args. Oh, sorry, I slipped into pirate mode there. One called args. And so that is the method header. Okay, cool. And inside the method is where you put your stuff. That's where you put your hello world stuff. Okay. And so all statements are terminated by a semicolon. So let me go put one in here. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to start with the exact same thing we had last time. And again, I'm not going to explain why I'm doing it just yet. Okay, so I put a semicolon there. And so all lines are terminated with a semicolon. Cool. Okay. So did you notice the curly braces? The way we've got it configured now is the class has the leftmost curly brace. And then the methods have the next leftmost curly braces, and then later on we're going to be adding more to this. So that you could look at the lining up of the curly braces, the opening and closing curly braces, and see whether or not you're talking to the class or you're talking to a particular method when you're writing stuff. And so where you put stuff is important. Like, for example, that system out will not work if it was on line 14 because it has to be inside a method. Cool. All right. So let's review the rules that we've learned so far. Ooh, do you think maybe I like rules when it comes to quizzes? Okay. So Java is case sensitive. So, for example, if I said, I'm making some stuff up. If I said int age, and then I said int age, those are two separate things because it's case sensitive and those are not identical. Source files are text-based and end with the extension Java. We talked about that last time. Comments are for the benefit of the human. The computer doesn't do anything with the comments whatsoever. In fact, during the compile phase, they are completely ignored. Each Java class, this thing that we see, we're working on something called Chapter2.java. Each one of those can have only one public class per file. Now, by the way, this is kind of unusual. I'm not aware that any other programming language that requires this particular rule, so it's kind of weird. So if I want to have two public classes, I'm just going to have to put them in two separate files. It's not a big deal, it's just that it's kind of weird. Every application must have a main method, okay? And every opening brace has to have a closing brace, and every opening square bracket has to have a closing square bracket, and every open parentheses has to have a closing parentheses. Come on, this is normal syntax rules. And that statements are terminated by a semicolon. Okay, now there's a list of what they call special characters. Okay, so / is the beginning of one of the types of comments. So anything beyond / is ignored. So you could have a very, very long list of something, and if you put / at the beginning, that's it. Not happening. And then, of course, opening, closing parentheses, opening, closing curly braces, quotation marks, and semicolon. Let's go back to our guy, because we have all that, okay? We've got a comment. We've got quotation marks. We've got semicolons. We've got it all. Okay. So the next thing we're going to talk about on page 33 is this thing we've been using called println. We've been doing it, so now it's about time to talk about it. So, there's two major types of applications that you can write for Windows. You can have one that's called a console application, which is basically just text-based. And then there's, Windows form application, that's what I call it. A Windows form application, which has, little cool windows that pop up and your buttons you push and all that kind of stuff. So at the beginning, we're just going to be doing a Windows console application. It just makes things easier, and then trust me, we'll particularly when we get to Chapter 12, we're definitely going to move on to doing other things. So what is a console application? Well, typically it's something that runs like at the DOS prompt. I mean, there's no graphical user interface at all, so the little DOS prompt will pop up and you type in whatever you want, hit the button, and it does its thing, and everything just stays inside the DOS prompt. So the Java API is a cool word, application binary interface, or application programming interface, API, has built-in things to be able to talk to this console window. And the way it works is this thing called system. Now, system, you notice, is capitalized, okay, system, because it's a class. Now, these are some rules that Java people came up with, so it'd probably be a good idea for you to follow the rules as well. So, class names start with capital letters. Cool. Variable names start with lowercase letters, okay? So, when something starts with a capital letter and has two words plugged together, that's called Pascal case. And if it starts with a lowercase letter and then has another word, that's called camel case, okay? That's the distinction between camel case And Pascal case is one of them starts with a lowercase, one of them starts with an uppercase. Cool. So, system is a class, the name of a class. We got a class, it's called Chapter2. And then the dot operator. And the dot operator basically says, I want to talk to something specifically inside that class. Well, the only thing we have inside our class is something called main. But inside this object, this class called system, they have something called out. Now, notice that out is green, okay? It also looks like it's kind of in italics, maybe. So that is the name of a particular object that exists inside that class. An object is an overused word, but it basically means is, any type of, person, place, or thing kind of a thing. We don't have any objects in ours I could kind of point to and say this is an object. But I guess I could do one. All right, so I'm going to go up here to the top, and I'm going to declare a variable at the top, which is something you do kind of sort of rarely. Let's say we're doing some sort of a payroll app or something, and so I want to say that the tax rate, and so I'm going to say tax rate equals, I don't know, 8.25. Okay, so that if you look over here, you can actually see what is inside Chapter 2. All right, Chapter 2 has something called main, and it's a method. And then it has this object out here, which is called tax rate. So if we were to do what they did, if we were to do, not in our application, but, well, I mean, I guess we could. I don't want to show you bad form. But if I was to say Chapter 2 dot, it's going to show me everything that's in there. And so in this case, all I have is main and a bunch of other junk. So the point of this is that an object is something that they put inside a class that they want you to use. Okay? So the object itself is not capitalized because the object is not a class. I'm going to say these words, and I promise we'll get back to it. It is an instance of a class. I know. Just nod your head whenever I say words like that and go, okay, I'm going to write that down, but hopefully you'll come back and explain what it means. Yeah, I promise I will. So, out is an object of a class. An instance of a class. And then we have methods. So, we have a method called main. They got a method. Let's just go look at how many methods there are. So the way to do that is just to start typing system.out and then hit the dot and just wait. And it's going to pop up all of the things that it can see. Okay? Now, by the way, the things that show up on this list are things that were specifically told to be visible. Remember we talked about the public keyword? About how this is now visible? That's what makes it visible. You could have things that do not show up on the list because you did not want to make them visible. Anyway, this is a huge list. It's got tons of stuff. They got print and printf and println. And we're only going to be using print and println for this chapter. Next chapter, we're going to be doing something different, but hey. So lots and lots of stuff inside that is visible. So what is the difference between print and println? I'm going to get rid of some of this stuff. In fact, I'm even going to get rid of this thing since I was just trying to kind of do a demo here. So I'm going to do just a plain old print. And then I'm going to turn right around and do something else again. I'm going to say, then I'm going to say println and say, hello from my Chapter 2 class. Okay, I'm ready to run this thing. So what's it going to do? What's the difference between print and println? Well, print is just going to go to the end of the line and stop. Println is going to print the line and then do a carriage return, new line, whatever that thing is called, and put it all on one line. So this says, hello world, and then just continues on without having a break there. Okay, we're coming up on the 15-minute mark, so you guys know how this works.